'Twas the night before Christmas, silent with no moans, no electronic was running, not even a phone. The stockings were hung by the oven with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were restless, not knowing what to do, while visions of video games called to them too. And Mama in her slippers and I in my cap had just settled down for a long winter's nap. When out of the lawn, a scream or two rose. I sprang from the bed to see what they would show. Away to the door, I ran with pure glee, turned open the knob and saw a Christmas tree. Every neighbor and parent were standing in snow, waiting in front of a Christmas-like glow, and my friend stood. Proudly he exclaims, "Take a breath, for now we have video games." Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another FrameGame. As you know, many amazing games have recently been released on the Nintendo Switch, so naturally when this occurred, I decided to review these games for all of you. However, this has proven to be more difficult than I had imagined. Originally I was playing Spider-Man, that turned into Spyro, that turned into Pokemon Let's Go, which inevitably evolved into playing Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. So in a case like this, what does a single video maker do in a time of overwhelming and epic releases? Well, that's easy. He uses these games to make his Holiday Extravaganza review list. If you missed it, you should check out the first video all about Marvel's Spider-Man. I will say you will not be disappointed. With that out of the way, let's dive into reviewing Spyro Reignited Trilogy. In this video review, I will be covering graphics, audio, gameplay, and overall experience. So let's dive directly into the graphics. Just so you know, I am a huge Spyro fan, thus I have played the 3 original games to death. So when I dove into this game, I had high expectations. I wanted it to feel like the original Spyro, if not better. So how does this game hold up? Well, I can certainly tell you that the graphics of this game are fantastic. Initially, I was extremely worried about this category for one simple reason. At the time of its initial announcement, I was worried that the Spyro from Skylanders would make an appearance. I'm sure that most people know what I'm talking about, but in case you don't, here's a hideous picture of the ugliest Spyro design ever created. Honestly, he just looks so awful. It was a huge disappointment. I felt as though they were failing to represent one of my favorite game characters in a major way. Luckily with the new Spyro game, they completely redesigned him to look closer to the original. Though they did change a few things, I can say with utmost confidence that these changes were done in a very good and solid way. Let's just say that Spyro has never looked this good. On top of this, the world around Spyro is magnificent when it comes to the shadows, cartoonish design, and overall style. The lighting is masterfully crafted and the textures were certainly made with care and utter devotion. You can certainly tell that the art designers wanted Spyro to stand the test of time and prove to be appealing for all audiences. From here we have the design of all the other dragons, which I will say was a welcome change. In the original Spyro, all the dragons were nearly identical with small color changes here and there. It was somewhat disappointing at the time, but now we have something truly special. Every single dragon you free is unique with creative styles, personalities, and voice actors. It made everything feel as if I truly were experiencing a world in which dragons exist. That's why for the game's graphics, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 slimes. The game didn't just deliver on everything I wanted out of it, but it took an extra step and went beyond my expectations. With that being said, let's move on to the audio. This was another category that I was both excited about and worried about. I love the original Spyro soundtrack, so I was concerned that they would not meet my expectations. However, I was pleasantly surprised to see that I could change the game to play the original soundtrack. This addition made me overwhelmed with joy, but I was also surprised with the revised version of the music. The creators truly wanted their music to sound good, but also stay true to the Spyro experience. Overall, it was certainly a pleasant surprise to hear music that followed suit to the game with a clear and solid sound feel. On top of this, we have the sound effects and even voice acting to consider. The effects are really well done and pleasant to listen to. The fire not only sounds good, but you can also burn certain things, including the grass, which slightly change the sound of your fire attack. Also, the voice actors they got for this are really good as well. They did a tremendous job with fitting voices with each unique character. With this being said, there are still some songs that I wish they had changed. A few of them, in my opinion, have always fallen flat, so naturally I was hoping that they would take the liberty to make something a little better. However, as I explained, they kept true with the original, thus making those songs just as boring as I remember. Also, part of me wishes that they would mix up the enemy's sounds from time to time. Nearly every enemy sounds identical to one another, whether it be the idle sounds or the death noises. Luckily, this changes per world since you get different creatures, so it doesn't stay too constant that it becomes annoying. So with that being said, I am going to give the audio a 4 out of 5 slimes. It was good, don't get me wrong, but there were some points that I feel were neglected as compared to how diverse the graphics were. Anyways, the next item in this list involves the gameplay. Now, as some of you may remember, the overall gameplay of Spyro can be what I'd consider an acquired taste. Back in the day, it was a huge hit-or-miss situation when it came to the gameplay. Either you were into the collectathon deal or not. On top of this, the controls were decent but not great. There were plenty of missions that I remember playing in the original that simply became infuriating and downright impossible to complete. So how does the new Spyro game match up in terms of gameplay? Well, to be honest, it's about the same. Sure, you can slightly change how you control things via the menu, but it doesn't affect it enough to make those segments any easier. Spyro still feels slightly out of control when ramming or supercharging, making certain challenges very difficult. On top of that, the flight levels still feel confusing and hard to traverse, making them just as difficult as they were in the initial release. However, most of the extremely challenging portions of the game can be skipped over entirely, so there's no worry when it comes to the rest of the game. The major portion of gameplay is a lot of fun in my opinion. However, once again, it's all about preference as to whether or not you're into collectathon platforms or not. I, being a huge fan of the category, naturally enjoyed this game. Some parts, like I said, left something to be desired, but I still had fun with it nonetheless. So with that being said, I'm going to score the gameplay at a 3 out of 5 slimes. It's more positive than negative to be sure, but some parts of the game still feel out of date, janky, and hard to control. With that being said, let's move on to the overall gaming experience. To be honest, I was hoping for more out of the game, but some portions simply didn't stand the test of time. Though the graphics were spot on, the other two categories struggled a bit. Thus, I will be giving this game a 3.5 out of 5 slimes. It's still a fun and enjoyable experience for those of you who enjoy that sort of thing. So if you like the originals, I guarantee that you will enjoy the Reignited Trilogy. However, for those of you who don't like this type of game, I'd say go ahead and skip it. There really isn't anything here that I would say could change your mind about these types of games. But for those of us who enjoy the genre of the game, I would say that it certainly is worth the buy, especially considering that you get 3 games for the price of 1. So thank you all so much for watching. If you missed it and are interested, feel free to check out the first video I made for this holiday season, Marvel's Spider-Man. And if you're interested in more videos like this one, feel free to subscribe and don't forget to keep an eye out for the rest of my holiday extravaganza review list.